I was delusional and pushed away my wife, used divorce as a threat to feel powerful, then left thinking I deserved better. It's been 10 years, and my ex rebuilt her life with a new husband. Now my son calls him dad, and I regret walking away from the family I destroyed, watching another man live the life I threw away. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd spend his days in sweatpants, glaring at a half-empty coffee mug like it held all the answers. My name's Derek, I'm 41, and I live in Denver. I used to be an architect, one of the youngest to make partner at Miller & Sons. Now I work freelance from my cramped apartment, mostly sketching out kitchen renovations and flipping through Instagram between jobs. Emily and I met in high school, the kind of story people find cute. Prom dates, a late-night drive that turned into forever. We got married at 23, bought a fixer-upper in 5 Points, and for a while, I thought we were unstoppable. Emily became a city engineer, the kind of job that sounds more glamorous than it is: water lines, sidewalk repairs. I used to brag about her over beers. My girl, building the future. When I was 35, we had Noah. I thought it would make everything feel bigger, more meaningful. Instead, I felt like I was losing ground. Emily bounced back in weeks, right back to drafting city blueprints. I drifted. Quit the firm because I wanted creative freedom, but the truth is, I was just burnt out. Emily always had this way of making things look easy. She'd come home at 6, tired but smiling, while I was still in pajamas, pretending I was researching design trends, but really just scrolling through travel blogs. She never said anything, but her quiet patience started to feel like pity. It ate at me. I wanted to be the man she married, ambitious, driven, someone who lit up a room. But there I was, making PB&Js for Noah and feeling like I was disappearing. Arguments started small. Who forgot to buy milk? Why I didn't finish the laundry? I hated how she never raised her voice, never got mad enough for me to feel justified. I started throwing around the word divorce like it was a card in my back pocket. I didn't mean it, not really. It was just power. Something to make her see that I wasn't just another piece of the furniture. You always look at me like I'm some kind of disappointment, I snapped once, after she asked if I was okay. Maybe you'd be happier if I just left. Emily didn't flinch. She just looked down at the floor, then back at me with those calm eyes that felt like they were seeing through all my bullshit. If that's what you really want, she said softly. But it wasn't. I wanted her to tell me to get it together, to fight for us. Instead, she just let the words hang there like they belonged to both of us. Back then, I thought I deserved more than what I was getting. More admiration, more excitement, more of something I couldn't even name. I didn't realize that what I really wanted was to feel like I mattered again. To feel like I was more than just Noah's dad, more than the guy with a half-finished novel and a pile of dirty dishes. I used to be admired. Now I felt like I was holding on to scraps of what that used to be. And every time Emily offered a kind word or a tired smile, it just felt like another reminder that I was the one who'd let everything slip away. Emily didn't beg. She didn't plead or promise to change. She just tried to meet me where I was, like she'd always done. She'd lean in with those soft, tired eyes and say things like, "We're still partners, Derek. We can work through this." But every time she tried to reach out, it felt like she was poking at a bruise I'd been nursing too long. Her empathy made me feel small, like I was some wounded animal she needed to fix. I started spending more time online, posting sketches and updates that made it look like I was busier than I was. I'd comment on strangers' posts, join forums where people thought I was brilliant, because they didn't know me. They didn't see the unmade bed or the dirty coffee cups in the sink. One night, after another stupid argument about who forgot to take the trash out, I just blurted it out. "I think we should separate," I said, barely looking up from my phone. I waited for her to argue, to tell me I was being dramatic, to tell me she still wanted me. But Emily just nodded. "Okay," she said, like she'd already grieved it 1,000 times in her head. "If that's what you really want." I felt like the floor fell out from under me. I didn't want to leave, not really. I wanted her to fight for me. But she didn't. She didn't yell or cry. She didn't tell me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. She just accepted it. A month later, we signed the papers. No messy scenes, no screaming matches. We agreed to split time with Noah, and I kept the apartment. It was too quiet after they left. I'd never noticed how still the rooms felt without her humming in the kitchen or Noah's chatter bouncing off the walls. Emily took most of the furniture. She said it was practical, she'd need it for Noah's room at her new place. Watching her pack up felt like a funeral, but I didn't say a word. I just sat on the couch, scrolling through Instagram and pretending I didn't care. Noah adjusted faster than I did. He'd come over on weekends, his little backpack slung over one shoulder, and tell me about Mom's new apartment and how she let him have an extra scoop of ice cream because it was a fresh start. I'd nod and smile, but inside, I was crumbling. I thought pushing Emily away would make me feel stronger, like I was taking control of my life. But when she stopped trying, I realized I didn't have a clue what I was doing. The night she left the apartment for good, she paused in the doorway. "You'll always be his dad," she said, her voice soft. "Don't let him forget that." I wanted to ask her to stay. to tell her I'd been an idiot. But I didn't. I just stood there, silent, and watched her walk out of the place we'd built together. And for the first time, I felt truly alone. For the first year after Emily and I split, I felt like a new man. No one telling me what to do, no eyes watching every move. I threw myself into this shiny version of myself, wine bars on Friday nights, fancy dinners with dates I barely remembered. I wanted to prove I was still the guy Emily fell for, that I hadn't turned into some washed-up dad in sweatpants. Noah would come over every other weekend, and I'd make pancakes or take him to the movies. For a while, he seemed fine, like the separation hadn't touched him. He was always smiling when he walked through my door, always excited to see me. I told myself that was proof I was doing okay, that none of this was really hurting anyone. But then, one night, Noah mentioned Emily's new boyfriend. Mom's friend Jason took me to the park, he said, all wide-eyed and happy. We played catch, and he's teaching me how to skateboard. It was like a punch to the gut. I'd always known Emily would move on. She's the kind of woman people notice. But hearing Noah talk about Jason like he was already part of the family, that stung in a way I didn't know how to handle. I tried to brush it off. I started going out even more, posting pictures of new restaurants, new drinks, new faces. I wanted the world to see that I was thriving, even if it was just for show. But slowly, work started to slip. Clients stopped calling back as often, and the few jobs I did land didn't light me up the way they used to. My sketches felt flat, like I was just going through the motions. The apartment felt emptier every week, no matter how many dates or parties I crammed in. Noah didn't notice at first. He'd still bounce in and tell me stories about his weekends with his mom and Jason, about how Jason took him hiking, or taught him how to make a kite from scratch. My stomach would knot up every time he said his name. Jason. It sounded like a placeholder for everything I used to be. One Sunday night, Noah sat on the couch, scrolling through pictures on his mom's phone. Jason built me a treehouse, he said, his face glowing. It has a little window and everything. I swallowed hard. My apartment didn't even have a balcony. The closest I'd gotten to building anything lately was a Lego set we never finished. I started picking up extra freelance work, trying to fill the hours, trying to feel useful again. But even when I was busy, I felt like I was falling behind. Emily was moving on. She had a new boyfriend, a new life. Noah had a new treehouse, new memories. And me? I was still stuck in that same dusty apartment, surrounded by half-finished sketches and an empty wine glass. For a while, I pretended it didn't matter. I'd smile and tell Noah I was happy for him, that it was great he was having fun. But the truth was, every time he mentioned Jason, I felt a little more invisible. I thought being single again would feel like freedom. But watching Emily thrive, and Noah light up around her new boyfriend, made me realize I hadn't just lost a marriage, I'd lost my place in the life I thought was mine. I met Jason one Saturday morning during a birthday drop-off. Emily had planned a small party for Noah at the park. She said I could come by for the cake, but I told her I'd just bring him over and let them have their time. I didn't want to hover. I pulled up to the curb, and there he was, Jason. He was helping Noah carry a stack of party favors, laughing like he'd known him forever. He looked younger than me, taller, too, with a kind of easygoing confidence I'd lost somewhere along the way. He had that outdoorsy look, like the kind of guy who actually used the hiking boots he wore. I felt like an intruder just standing there, holding Noah's overnight bag. "Hey, Derek," Jason said, reaching out his hand. "Glad you could make it." I didn't shake his hand. I just nodded, trying not to let the tightness in my chest show. Noah ran over and gave me a quick hug, then darted back to Jason's side, already talking a mile a minute about the new treehouse they were building together. I stood there, feeling like a prop in someone else's story. The kind of father who drops his kid off and leaves, not the one who stays and helps set up balloons or pass out slices of cake. Emily came over, smiling in the gentle way she always did. "Thanks for bringing him," she said. She looked tired but happy, like a woman who had finally found her rhythm again. I wanted to tell her how it felt to watch this guy slide so easily into my life. To hear Noah talk about Jason like he was just another part of the family. But the words stuck in my throat, and I just gave her a tight smile before heading back to my car. A few weeks later, Noah told me Emily was pregnant again. "Jason's going to be a dad," he said, bouncing on the couch, his eyes bright. "I'm going to have a baby sister." I managed to smile, but inside, it felt like I was being pushed further out of the picture. A new family was forming, and I wasn't part of it. I was just there. A weekend dad with nothing but a half-empty fridge and a dusty set of art supplies to show for himself. Noah's stories about Jason became the soundtrack of our weekends. Jason taught him how to ride a bike without training wheels. Jason went to his school's field day and cheered louder than anyone else. Jason made pancakes on Sunday mornings. Meanwhile, I was stuck in my tiny apartment, trying to keep up with bills and the endless quiet that came after Noah left each time. I'd sit on the couch, scrolling through photos Emily posted of Jason holding Noah's hand at the zoo, or the three of them at a pumpkin patch. They looked like a family. And me? I looked like a ghost in the background. The worst part was, Jason wasn't some jerk. He wasn't the villain in this story. He was kind to Noah, and to me when we crossed paths. He didn't try to push me out, but somehow, it still felt like I was being replaced, piece by piece. It was easier to blame Emily or Jason or anyone but myself. But deep down, I knew this was my doing. I'd been so sure I wanted out. So sure I deserved something bigger than family nights and weekend soccer games. But now, watching someone else live the life I'd walked away from, I realized I'd thrown away the only thing that really mattered. I was becoming the background character in my own son's life, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Christmas was always my favorite time of year when I was a kid. My dad would hang up those old string lights that never quite matched, and my mom would bake her cinnamon cookies and sing along with the radio. It was messy, but it was home. After Emily and I divorced, I tried to keep some of that magic for Noah. I pulled out the old decorations from storage, untangling the lights in my living room until they glowed just bright enough to make it feel a little less empty. I spent hours picking out the perfect gifts for Noah. A new Lego set, some superhero pajamas, a book I remembered loving when I was his age. I even bought a small tree and set it up in the corner of the living room, hoping it would make my place feel more like his place. A few days before Christmas, I called Emily to ask about our holiday plans. Noah was asking if he could spend Christmas morning here, I said, trying to sound casual. I thought we could open presents together, maybe make pancakes. There was a pause. Actually, Emily said gently, he asked if he could be here that morning. Jason's making pancakes, and he really wants to be with his baby sister for her first Christmas. I felt like someone had kicked the air out of me. I forced a smile she couldn't see. Oh, sure. That's fine. Thank you, Derek, she said. He'll still spend the evening with you, okay? We'll drop him off after lunch. I agreed, because what else could I do? I hung up the phone and looked around my apartment, the tiny tree twinkling in the corner, the stack of presents that suddenly seemed a little sad. I kept telling myself it didn't matter, that it was just one morning, but my chest felt hollow. Christmas morning, I made myself some coffee and watched the old home videos I'd saved on my laptop, the ones where Noah was still a toddler, giggling as he tore through wrapping paper while Emily laughed beside him. I let the memories wash over me, let myself feel the ache of what I'd lost. Around noon, I heated up leftovers from the night before. I sat at the kitchen table, eating cold turkey and watching the snow fall outside the window. I tried not to think about the fact that Jason was making pancakes for my son, that he was the one who got to see Noah's sleepy face light up first thing that morning. I scrolled through social media later, because I couldn't help myself. I saw photos of Emily and Jason with Noah, all of them in matching flannel pajamas, their baby girl in Jason's arms. They looked like a holiday card come to life. I didn't post any pictures that day. There didn't seem to be a point. When Noah finally came over that evening, he was full of stories. Jason made snowman pancakes, he said, grinning wide. We watched movies all morning, and the baby kept trying to eat the wrapping paper. I listened and smiled, even though every word felt like another little cut. I didn't want him to feel my hurt. He was happy, and that was what mattered, right? After he went to bed, I sat in the glow of the Christmas lights, feeling the weight of the quiet around me. The holidays used to be loud and messy, filled with laughter and crumbs on the floor. Now, it was just me, the tree, and the memories of what could have been. I knew this was the life I'd chosen. But in those moments of silence, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. A couple of weeks after Christmas, I finally agreed to see a therapist. It was Emily's idea. She'd mentioned it months before, back when we were still together, but I always brushed it off. Now, with everything feeling so empty, I didn't have any more excuses. The first few sessions felt like small talk. The therapist, a calm guy named Ben, would ask about my work, my hobbies, how I was sleeping. I kept trying to act like I was fine, like this was just a rough patch I'd snap out of any day. But one session, Ben asked me straight out, "Do you think you ever really appreciated Emily? Or did you just expect her to stay?" I stared at him, stunned. I wanted to say yes, of course I did. But the truth was, I didn't know. I'd spent so much time trying to feel important again that I'd stopped seeing what was right in front of me. That question rattled around in my head for days. I started noticing how I'd always wanted Emily to notice me, to see my work, my plans, my needs. But I never really saw hers. I took her for granted, the way she always picked up the slack when I was too tired to cook or too busy to care. Ben told me to try small steps. You can't change the past, he said, but you can decide how you show up now. He suggested routines, hobbies, even asked if I wanted to reconnect with Noah in a way that didn't revolve around fighting for attention. I took his advice, but I wasn't sure how to start. I bought new clothes, trying to look less like the guy who had given up. I got a fresh haircut. I even tried recording a podcast about design, something I'd always wanted to do. But the first episode sounded like a guy pretending to be someone he wasn't. One afternoon, I was scrolling through old photos on my phone. Emily and Noah at the beach, all sunburned and smiling. Me, with my arm around Emily's shoulders, grinning like I had it all figured out. I realized then that it wasn't the beard or the style that had changed, it was me. I'd been so focused on how people saw me that I'd stopped being there for the people who actually mattered. I saw the truth in every small memory. The way Emily used to pause when she was talking, waiting to see if I was listening and how often I wasn't. The way she'd give me those little smiles when Noah did something funny, but I was too busy feeling sorry for myself to notice. That night, I sat down and wrote out everything I'd been avoiding. A long journal entry full of raw honesty, things I hadn't said out loud in years. I didn't plan to share it. I didn't even know if it would help. But writing it felt like cracking open a window in a room that had been shut up too long. The next day, I woke up feeling different. Not better, not healed, but like I was finally seeing things clearly for the first time. It wasn't about the life I'd lost or the freedom I'd been chasing. It was about the fact that I'd emotionally checked out a long time before Emily ever did. I wasn't mourning a marriage or even the family I thought I'd have. I was mourning the man I used to be, the man who could have fought for what really mattered. And as painful as it was, there was something freeing in finally admitting that. One warm Saturday in March, Noah and I spent the day together. He was older now, taller, more confident. We went to a baseball game downtown, cheering so loud our voices cracked. For a few hours, it felt like old times. Just me and my kid, no ghosts of Jason or Emily or the life I'd thrown away. On the ride home, Noah was in the back seat, telling me about school and how Jason was going to take him camping next month. My stomach clenched, but I kept my eyes on the road, nodding like it didn't bother me. Then he said it. Mom says Dad might take us camping next month. His voice was casual, like he didn't even notice the weight of the word. Dad. For a second, I thought I misheard him. But he kept talking, completely unaware of how that single word tore me apart. I forced a smile into the rearview mirror. That sounds like fun, buddy. My voice cracked just enough that he looked up, confused. But I turned up the radio and kept driving, pretending everything was fine. When I dropped him off at Emily's place, she waved from the porch, holding the baby on her hip. Jason was there too, stacking firewood like some perfect suburban dad. I waved back, my hand feeling like it didn't belong to me. I drove home in silence. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't care about, reminders, work emails, nothing that mattered. I ignored them, my mind stuck on that word. Dad. It wasn't mine anymore. I was the one who gave it away. I got home and went straight to the shower. The water was too hot, but I didn't care. I let it pound against my shoulders until I was shaking, until I couldn't tell if it was the heat or the way my chest was breaking open. I thought I was okay with the way things ended. I told myself over and over that I wanted the freedom, that I didn't need the old life I'd left behind. But in that moment, alone and sobbing under the water, I realized the truth. I'd walked away from everything that mattered, and someone else had stepped in and taken my place. Jason was the one Noah called Dad now. And me? I was just the guy who dropped him off and picked him up, a stranger in my own story. I stayed in that shower until the water ran cold. I didn't have answers or a plan or some grand gesture to fix it. All I had was the knowledge that I'd let this happen, one careless choice at a time. And I didn't know if I'd ever find a way back. The night after that last ride with Noah, I sat at my desk, staring at a blank page in my journal. I didn't know what I wanted to say. I didn't even know if writing it down would help. But I had to try. I started slow, just jotting down the facts. I pushed Emily away, let the marriage slip through my fingers, and watched another man step into the life I was too proud to hold on to. Then the words kept coming, faster than I expected. I wrote about how I used validation like currency, how I needed Emily's admiration more than her love, how I treated her empathy like weakness. I wrote about the nights I spent alone, telling myself freedom was worth it. About the mornings I woke up in a quiet apartment and realized I didn't even like the person staring back at me in the mirror. I wrote about how I thought I'd been abandoned, but the truth was I'd left. I'd walked out on the family I'd promised to protect. I'd traded real connection for the hollow praise of strangers online. And I'd let Noah's childhood slip away while I tried to feel important. When I finished, I put the pen down and read it over. My chest felt raw, but there was something almost peaceful about seeing the truth written out like that. Like maybe, for once, I wasn't just lying to myself. The next morning, I called Emily. She answered after 2 rings, her voice gentle. Hey, Derek, she said. Everything okay? I took a deep breath. I'm not calling to apologize, I said, or to ask for anything. I wanted to thank you for raising Noah so well, for making sure he had what he needed, even when I wasn't there. She was quiet for a moment. Thank you, Derek, she said softly. I know it hasn't been easy for any of us. I wanted to tell her everything I'd written, all the ways I'd failed her, all the regrets I carried. But I knew it wasn't her job to hear them. It wasn't her responsibility to forgive me or fix what I'd broken. I don't expect you to say anything, I said finally. I just needed to say that. For me. She took a shaky breath. I appreciate it, she said. But I've got to go. I'm making dinner for the kids. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yeah, of course. She hung up, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel angry or resentful. I felt grateful. Grateful that she'd kept going, even when I'd checked out. Grateful that Noah had a safe, happy home, even if it wasn't mine anymore. I knew there wouldn't be some dramatic reconciliation. I wasn't a hero in this story. I'd made my choices, and now I had to live with them. But at least I could finally see them for what they were, not fate, not bad luck, but the consequences of my own actions. And in that quiet moment, sitting alone in my apartment, I realized that was the first real step I'd taken in years. The first step towards something honest, even if I didn't know what it was yet.